What are we working on today, Lontrezi?
This.
We haven't seen this mini bike in quite a spell. So biggest problem I think we're going to run into is front end.
Front forks.
Yeah, they're at a stupid angle and they're stupid weak. So we'll address that later, but today we just want to ride it. You guys haven't seen, step back a little baby daddy. We redid the swing arm pivot point. Before we had a jack shaft and the swing arm was sticking off the jack shaft. And the reason we did that was because we wanted to run that pulley inboard. Inboard would mean that sprocket or that spring would be pointed in, and we was going to swap this out. Go Power Sports sells these springs that's made for inbound, and because that's the correct way to run that CVT system, well, we just don't have the room on this bike and the way everything's set up, so we end up redesigning it, and now our pivot point is the swing arms mount, so we don't have to worry about the chain ever loosening. That thing's going to stay tight all the time, and this is a brand new chain, so it will stretch. So Lonnie's going to cut this extra shaft off. We're going to leave like a 1/4 inch of a lip. Then we got to readjust the engine and tune the carb. Take her for a hoon snort.
And I've still not rid this road.
Rid?
Reduced?
Rodod? Yeah, it's super rich right now. Like, it's flooding itself. So
but we're about to fix that.
We're going to fix that and then basically take it out for its
So my first ride will be,
proper. Hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right.
It won't be. We know it won't be.
It's going to take a little bit to tune it, for sure. And we do need to brace this intake. We did this large intake, and I do need to come up with a brace from here that's welded to this, but we're not going to do that today. Hopefully it don't crack. Don't crack it, please.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. Alright, so now we get to adjust the engine and then we'll tune the carb. Alright, I'm going to pull this carburetor. This is a 26mm true Makuni from Go Power Sports. We will put links. This is a good 301 carb. I think it'd be much for a 212, but some people are going to do what they got to do, you know what I'm saying? Who engineered this? One thing we didn't do is put a fuel shut off. That was a good idea. Yeah, well, look at that. That's pretty nice. I forgot I did that. So I took all the drain hoses and clamped them, clamped them right there. So they're out of the way. I'll pull this hose out. I just gotta get this carb side. There we go. It's peeing out a little fuel. Baby girl, in my pliers drawer, there's those new fuel pliers to get the middle size set. As soon as we get the forks figured out, we're painting this thing. So it'll be a done.
Black ones?
Yes, ma'am. And Harbor Freight has these fuel shut-off pliers, and they are handy.
Perfect screwdriver holder.
Oh yeah, the foot peg. So this 301 has the Go Power Sports Stage 2 kit for a GX270, a 270, GX270 and a 301 is pretty much the same engine. So it has a billet flywheel, billet rod. I think this has a 275 lift cam. We ported the head, stock valve train other than heavier valve springs from Go Power Sports. I think the 50-pound springs. So all in all, she should be a ripper. This thing was a ripper before. You remember those days, Lonnie? Well, we didn't have the head ported, and we had a nasty knock in this engine forever. And the knock,
I do remember that.
The knock ended up being crankshaft end play was so bad on this Predator that it sounded like a rod knock when it wasn't. It was just the end play was so bad. That's what it was. So now I just got to unhook the fuel line and we'll throw it on the bench. So I'm sure this takes the same jets as a VM24. Pilot jets are a little bit makes a huge difference. So let's say this had I'm just throwing numbers out, 25 pilot jet. If you went down to a 15, that's a pretty huge jump. All right, so our float height looks good. Never check that. I'm gonna grab a flathead. Your pilot jet will be located in this hole here, and of course your main jet is up here. This has a 180 main jet, and I'm not sure on the main jet because we first got to tune the pilot jet, but I'm probably 180 might be right. So if you're ever tuning a carburetor, you tune the pilot jet first, the idle circuit and the pilot jet, and then you move up from there. So these are so freaking hard to read. I think this is a 15. So we're also going to check, I forgot to on the bike. Of course, this is your slide adjuster. This is just raising and lowering the slide to set your idle, basically. But you use this with your air mixture screw to set your idle. So this should be no more than 3 turns out, no less than 1 turn in. So we're going to go half, 1, 1.5, 2. So we was 2 turns out. I always like to start with 1.5 or 2 turns out. So we'll go back to, let's see what, okay, so it's half, 1, 1.5, and we'll start at 2 turns out. So that's where you want to first start, and then you'll set this so your bike is just barely idling, like almost stumbling, and it helps if your bike is at full operating temperature. And then you can start twisting this in a half a turn, give it 8 or 10 seconds, see if it changes good or bad, loosen it a half a turn, keep doing that. Like I said, you just don't want to be more than 1 turn in or no more than 3 turns out, or that's going to tell you if you need to go up or down in your pilot jet. Now the fun part, because this is my jet setup. This is for Keans, McCoonies. So me and Lonnie get to dig through the pilot jets and read these microscopic numbers to find, I'm going to go with a, it was black smoking pretty good, so I think a 10, yeah.
These are the ones?
Yes.
I'll grab me a few.
While we're searching, I'm going to turn the fans on. Get this gas smell out. So our main jet this carb had in it was a 180. We went down to a 165. We also have a 155, a 160, and a 170 sitting aside. So just in case we have to retune, we already got these sitting out. Then on our pilot jet, we had a 15 in it, and the smallest pilot jet I had was 12.5. But again, pilot jets, a little bit is a big difference. So we're hoping that will be fine. We can tune it out. So now we can put all this back on. We can slap this back on and give it a first fire. Now I've rode this thing across the driveway, and that front end is going to be trash, but maybe it's going to be better with Lonnie because I'm thicker than buttermilk, so it's never great with me on it.
And I've ridden on other bikes with that front end, and it's the same with me. I mean, not as bad as with you, but it's still garbage.
If you can afford to buy the Trailmaster MB200, I'm telling you, out of the box, it's what you would have with a Coleman if you spent $1,000 extra on it, like in modifications. Because it has rear suspension, better front suspension, and they're coming out with front disc brakes for it and all the jazz. So this gas gave me a headache, so I'm torqued up over here. Okay, and by the way, that main jet is a 6 mil. I always use a socket driver, little bit driver thing, and with a 6 mil on it. Now we can slap this 26 millimeter McCooney back on. And remember, we have that set at 2 turns out. We're gonna take this with us so we can fine tune that. And we're gonna take the Phillips head. All right, so we'll slide that puppy in, get everything lined up. Another thing that has to be adjusted soon is the front fender is too low with these big tires on it. These tires are big daddies for a mini bike, and they rub. Alright, so we're ready to did a 160 main jet, 12.5 pilot jet, 26 millimeter McKinney. Fire her up.
Yeah, but it's not spitting, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, so spitting would be rich, falling on face is lean, so
Yep.
yeah, give it one more little hoon.
But I did get in it one good time, and it's stout.
You can tell it's starved for fuel because it's not just wanting to rev out, and that engine is pretty hopped up. Sorry for getting wind noise. Also, I have the preload on that shock max for my weight, so Lonnie might not be feeling the full suspension. Yeah, we're gonna have to go up on the main jet again.
Such a difference on how it pulls when it does grab, so
Yeah.
it was definitely the choke before.
Yeah, we left the choke on and rode it, and input the video here. So that was with the choke on accident. Don't happen often, but she happened. And we put it back in, and I was like, the choke might have been on. Lonnie was like, also, there's no bolts in the muffler. The only thing that was holding the header on was the mount.
Brace.
Brace is great, though. You don't need bolts. So,
they did back out.
oh, did they?
Yeah, because one's missing and one's half backed out.
Oh, so we need to put some blue Loctite on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Okay. Back to the drawing board.
This is how you learn, trial and error.
That's good. So we went from a 165 main jet to a 175 main jet. We left the same pilot. The pilot jet was pretty decent, I felt like.
Yeah.
You know, we can tweak out the idle circuit. So another hoon snort. Choke is off.
Colin. Yeah, she's fast. You still can't just goose it.
What will it do?
Same thing, yeah.
Spin.
No, bog.
Bog down.
But she's fast.
Well, that could be the needle height. The mid-range is needle height, so I feel like coming off the throttle, we need to adjust that needle. Maybe.
Yeah, if you just ease into it though, she goes.
It sounds like it's running a lot healthier. Do one more hard hoon. All right, guys, so we're getting this thing tuned in little bits at a time. I do feel like we need to go back up to that original 180. So here's what we did. We left the choke on the original ride to test the bike out. So he was like, oh man, it's super rich, so we need to dull it down a bit. Actually, it wasn't rich. It was probably perfectly fine right out of the box. That 180 and 15 main jet, I had a 180 main jet, 15 pilot jet was probably perfect. So we're gonna go back to that setup and keep on tweaking it, maybe raise or lower the needle, see what it needs, and tweak it out before the next video. And the next video on this bike, we're gonna pull those forks off and do some modifications to them to stiffen them quite a bit. We're gonna try to get more than double the stiffness out of them. We're gonna do heavier oil, and we're gonna do some spacers in there. So stay tuned. If you have a Coleman bike, you wanna watch the next video because this will help it out drastically, especially if you're a heavier person. But I feel like Lonnie's 150, and these front forks still want to collapse constantly. You want your front forks to be pretty tight because when you brake, all your weight's transferring forward. It just wants to collapse those forks. So stay tuned to the next video where we tune that out. Also, make sure to check out the links in the video description. Everything we got on this bike is located below. We got that full stage 2 kit from Go Power Sports. Those 301s are a perfect happy medium between a small block and like a 440 or a 420. Their weight's quite a bit lower, and we're saving weight because we didn't go with the torque converter plate. We just ran Go Power Sports front and rear pulley on a jack shaft, so it feels a little bit better. So stay tuned, guys. This bike's gonna get pretty sick. Hopefully with stiffening those forks, we won't have to do any different angle on them. I think the angle's pretty decent, so hopefully it's just weak forks. So stay tuned, guys. It's gonna get pretty sweet. Check out them links, support your boy, and we'll see you on the next one. We love you guys, and God bless.